That was Defendant Key on the stand earlier, and guess what? Later on, after the afternoon recess, we will have closings in this case. But this gives me an opportunity to discuss the case with my guests. We've never been on together, and I'm really excited. It is former police officer, Sergeant in Los Angeles Police Department, Cheryl Dorsey. How are you?
I'm well. Thanks for having me.
I'm so excited because I have so many things to ask you about this case, because this man shot and executed his neighbor in cold blood. We all saw the video. We were watching it. I mean, it's kind of scary. And then the police officers had to arrive on the scene, and there were witnesses who were like the mail carrier. How, as a police officer, do you secure a scene, making sure the witnesses are okay, you're okay, and yet you get the defendant and the evidence so that you have to prosecute him and it is okay?
Well, you know, the first thing that you want to do is you want to freeze frame. You want to contain that situation. You want to quickly, well, you need requesting additional units, right? Because you're going to need some extra hands and eyes to help you coordinate. But you want to gather up everyone who may have pertinent information. You want to put them in a place where you can either transport them to the station later for a full in-depth interview, or at the very least get their information and let them carry on about their day. And then you want to go about protecting the scene, containing and making sure that the suspect, if he's still on scene, is in custody and not able to flee or destroy evidence. And so there's a lot of moving parts, but you know, that's what we train for. That's what we live for. And then once we get everything situated, then we call in the detectives to do that really in-depth on-scene forensic stuff that will help corroborate whatever crime it is we want to substantiate later.
Well, we saw, as we were talking, again, this is a live video you're going to see as we're talking of the shooting, because the defendant had cameras all over, and that indicates either he was concerned about security or he really was some kind of paranoid, as you can see right now. But your first officer on the scene, and what you're telling me is the first officers on the scene are very important to getting a conviction.
Well, it's very important to make sure that we make sure the evidence doesn't get contaminated, right? We've got to quickly make an assessment. What's important? What might be important down the road? And then we personally don't want to contaminate the scene. We want to make sure that as we're traversing through looking for additional victims, looking for additional witnesses, that we ourselves don't contaminate and disturb evidence that might be necessary for the detectives down the road.
Well, let's hear one of the police officers who was on the scene, Wayne Bokalu, who actually spoke to Mr. Key, because Mr. Key at the time was very proud that he had killed his neighbor. So this defendant, this person who killed his next door neighbor, Cheryl Dorsey, former 20-year veteran of the LAPD who's investigated a number of homicides, he was talkative. He wanted to tell what he did, and it's pretty gruesome. He executed his neighbor, shot him first. He didn't want to shoot him in the face, shot him in the chest, then went back and shot him behind the ears, two places, and really just without any cause at all. How many cases have you had or have you seen where you have somebody who appears to be a madman who just let loose on his neighbor for no reason at all?
Well, you know, unfortunately, this is not an anomaly, right? And there seems to be some very specificity connected to this case with regards to the animus that he had with his neighbor. Now, I don't know what this was all about, if this is something that has been brewing and stewing in his mind over time, right? But the fact that he went hunting for the roommate, the lady that he could not find, the fact that he proudly said, Mr. Key proudly said that he wanted to have delay between bullet wounds, if you will, to inflict additional pain and suffering, speaks to a really vicious and mean-spirited person.
Yes, Cheryl, I agree with you. When I heard that he went hunting and locked and this, tore off that lock with his gun looking for the woman, that in my mind made me not only angry but really, really afraid of what could happen out there. And now, you know what? We have to take a little bit of a break. There'll be more of the case of Florida versus Chu Feng Key after we return.